صاحب العصر والزمان گھبرائیں گی زینب یاد آئیں گی زینب بھیا تمہیں گھر جا کے کہاں پائیں گی زینب گھبرائیں گی زینب کیسا یہ بھرا گھر ہوا برباد الہی کیا آئی تباہی اب اس کو نہ عباس کبھی پائیں گی زینب گھبرائیں گی زینب پھٹ جائے گا بس دیکھتے ہی گھر کو کلے جا یاد آؤ گے بھیا دل ڈھونڈے گا تم کو تو کہاں پائیں گے زینب گھبرائیں گی زینب بے پردہ ہوئی قید بھی خواہر نے اٹھائی اور موت نہ آئی کیا جانیے کیا کیا ابھی دکھ پائیں گی زینب گھبرائیں گی زینب گھر جا کے کسے دیکھے گی قاسم ہے نہ عباس اکبر بھی نہیں پاس اپنے علی اصغر کو کہاں پائیں گی زینب گھبرائیں گی زینب صلوات رحم اللہ من قرأ الفاتحة بسم اللہ اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم بسم اللہ وباللہ وصلی اللہ علی محمد وآلہ
وأفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. لقد جاءت رسل ربنا بالحق والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد. روحي وجسمي وارواح العالمين لك الفداء يا ابن رسول الله. ثم السلام عليكم يا أهل الأزاء الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله كونوا مع الصادقين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
This is a Quranic ayat in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. As I have said previously, that whenever in the Holy Quran you see the word Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O those who believe, then the next part of that is a wajibat for a human being, particularly for us, for those who are believers. Anytime you see that in the Quran, when it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ku anfusikum, O those who believe. So every time it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina in the Quran, the next item is an item that Allah says it is wajib on you. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu ma'as sadiqeen. He's saying basically that you are to believe, you are to bring taqwa for yourself, be among the pious people, be among the people who are nearest to God. And then he goes on to say, and then be with those who are truthful. Truthful, if you see in the tafsir of the Quran many times, it is reference to Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad alayhimus salam. So tonight we are here to observe the Shahadat of Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. And we are here to pay condolences to our 12th Imam, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, for his father. When you look at history, Imam al-Hadi or Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salam had 5 children. 4 boys and 1 girl. The boys were named as the first child was Sayyid Muhammad. The second one was Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. The third was Ja'far. The fourth was Hussein. And the fifth was a daughter whose name was Aliyah. Sayyid Muhammad, for those of us who have been to Iraq, and if you've never been there, may Allah give you that opportunity. And if we have been there, may Allah give us another opportunity again. But we usually go for the ziyarat of Sayyid Muhammad most of the time, if the conditions in Iraq allows you, which is, if you look at Balad, Balad is a city not far from Samarra, which is where Sayyid Muhammad is buried. Now, Sayyid Muhammad in history is considered to be among one of those very, very pious children of our Imams. Because Imams in many times, and if you look in history, you will find that there were good people within, or children of Imam, who were very good and very pious. But then you also had the children who were not pious at all. When you look at the 10th Imam, his son, Sayyid Muhammad, was extremely pious person. He was so pious that when we go to his ziyarat in Balad, we usually recite in his ziyarat that he whom Allah had raised it so high. We call him that. And Sayyid Balad is the place where we usually go, and our families go, particularly those who do not have children. Because if you go to Balad and you go to the shrine of Sayyid Muhammad, outside you will find people selling all kinds of things, and also for Hajat, for those families that don't have any children. And it isn't that it happened in those times, but even in our current times, many times I have been in those kafilas, and there have been families that said that they didn't have any children, and then after they had come to Balad and prayed under the dome of this Imam, of this Sayyid Muhammad, that Allah had given them children. So it's not unusual that this happens to even today within our communities. We've seen this, and it isn't something that happened to those who had just gotten married. It is to those who were married but didn't have any children for a number of years, and then they came under the dome of Sayyid Muhammad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them children. But this Sayyid Muhammad was the eldest. Now, just as it happened in the time of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, that after the 5th Imam, and then came the 6th Imam, the 6th Imam's eldest son was Ismail. Ismail died before the 6th Imam died. But then there were those, till today, who believe that the Imamat should have been given to the eldest son. And that is not the way it works for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He grants Imamat to whomever He wants to grant, and it may not be the first child. This is our way of thinking, that the first child has to be the Imam. So when you look at this 6th Imam, it happened in his era that people followed Ismail, even though he had died, and it was in the presence of the 6th Imam, he was being buried, that the 6th Imam declares at that time and says, is everybody witnessing the fact that I am bearing my first son? The same thing happened in the time of our 11th Imam. Because 11th Imam was the second child of Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salam. And therefore, imamat was not given to the first child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the order of Allah, that imamat was given to Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. So when you look at that, in those times, there were people like that. And history says that our 11th Imam was 20 years of age. Imam, the Sayyid Jawad, was 23 years of age at the time. And he decided to go for Mecca. Now there are two riwayats on this. One says that Sayyid Muhammad left Samarra and he was on his way to Mecca. When he came to the city of Balad, he got sick and he died. Another riwayat says that he had gone to collect rent from some of the people who were occupying the properties of Imam alayhi salam himself, the 10th Imam. So he had gone to get the rent for that. And the people of that town, because they had believed that the person who becomes the Imam after 10th has to be the first child, decided to kill him. Because at that time Imam Hassan al-Askari was already declared. So they said, no, this is not appropriate that he. So they actually kill him in Balad. But whatever the situation is, Sayyid Muhammad was very, very highly respected. And if you look at the way Imam alayhi salam himself, when Imam Ali al-Naqi alayhi salam was in Medina, this Imam, our Imam, was only 4 years of age. And Imam was told to migrate from Medina. So he migrated when this child was still small. And they came to the city of Samarra. Samarra is a city which was known as Surraman Rai, means the one that pleases the eye. The reason it was done that is that prior to Surraman Rai, Samarra was actually a city of army. It was a garrison city. Only the army was established there. There were two cities where armies were established after Medina. One was Kufa and one was Samarra. They were afraid of the Turks coming in. They were afraid of the Persians coming in. So they decided that they make these two. Umar ibn Sa'ad's father, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqas, is the founder of the city of Kufa. He was the first person to come to Kufa. When he brought his army into Kufa and they established an army city, then they did the similar thing in Samarra. The biggest threat, they had the Turks. And the Turks at that time had already penetrated into Baghdad. Baghdad had a lot of Turkish mercenaries, and they were all settled there. But these Turkish people, these Turkish army people, used to go on the horses in the city of Baghdad, and they used to harass the women while they were sitting on their horses, to the extent that they would pick up a woman from the ground and put them on their horses. The people of Baghdad were very, very upset with what was transpiring in Baghdad. So they went to the caliph of the time and said, listen, you either fix this issue that we have in the city of Baghdad and the harassment that we are getting from these Turkish people, or the people of Baghdad will rise against you. And the interesting thing, history says, that when they said that they will rise against you, they did not say that we will use arms. They said we will use the dua of Sahar, and then you will see what will happen to you. Mutawakkil and all these people were very scared of what was transpiring in Baghdad. So they decided to get out of Baghdad, not make Baghdad as one of the capital cities. So they moved to Surraman Rai. Now Surraman Rai is a city where the city is divided by the river Tigris. And if you go there, sometimes when we go for ziyarah, we don't see that beautiful part of the city, but there is a beautiful part of the city. If the buses take you around Samarra, that you'll be surprised how beautiful this city is, with beautiful gardens and beautiful types of flowers are growing there. And it is a very, very clean sort of city. Particularly at that time, it was very, very beautiful, with waterfalls and everything. So when Mutawakkil came there and he saw the city, although the city at that time was still an army city, he changed the name. The city's name was Askari. Askari means a city with garrisons. It's an army city. So he then called that city, he said, we should not call this city Askari, we should call it Surraman Rai. Because every time anybody comes to Samarra, it pleases their eyes for what they will see. So he changed his name. Now he was with the 10th Imam. So what he does, and if you look at history, this city was also known as Askariyan, meaning there were two Askaris buried. The 10th Imam and the 11th Imam. They're both buried there. And they both, all of their family were in a single home there. So when they arrived there with the 10th Imam and the name was changed, at that time, Mutawakkil orders his people and he says, bring me 100 bags of wheat, each about 100 pounds. And bring him over. So he asked his people to go and find this wheat. And they brought these bags of wheat in Samarra, and they put these bags, and he said, I want you to pile up these bags as high as they can go. And then he asked his deputy, he said, let us climb this bag, this heap of bags. So they climbed all the way to the top. Mutawakkil then looks down and he sees the 10th Imam. And then he says to the 10th Imam, listen, look at the kingdom that I have. Look at the massive kingdom that I have. What do you have? You have nothing. And Imam alayhi salam said, come down. He came down and he opened up his two fingers and says, look between these two fingers. Then you will realize whose kingdom is the highest kingdom. So he looked into the kingdom between those two fingers and he saw that Imam had a palace way up in Jannah. Beautiful palace, and there were so many guards that were overlooking the Imam, trying to take care of him. And Imam alayhi salam then says that it is not about creating these big heaps and making yourself so high. I'm already way beyond your height, as close to Allah as anybody can be. So that is one of the reasons that Askari was known as Samarra. And when you look at it, even in the life of our 11th Imam, same thing happened. And what they did was, Mu'tasim Billah at the time was the leader, and what he did was he decided to call his army, and he had a huge army, and he made them parade throughout the city. And he invited the 11th Imam, and the 11th Imam was sitting next to him, and he says to him, he says, look at this parade, look at the soldiers that I have. And the same thing happens to this Imam, is that he also asks him to look between the two fingers, and he saw a massive army behind the 11th Imam. And at that time, he turned over and he said, so you are an Askari. The name Askari came to this Imam, both of these Imams, because they were living in a city that was consisting of army only. It wasn't until Mu'tasim Billah comes there and decides to build Samarra into a city. And that is how the city of Samarra sort of came into existence. If you go to Balad, Balad you will see is like a village. But when you come to Samarra, Samarra will look like it is a big city, and it is. And it was a very big city at that time. And there were people that started to migrate. But of course, the Turkish was the ones that were starting to migrate before anybody else did, because the city was elected as a city. So a lot of people started to migrate into Samarra. And that is why even till today, among the most dangerous places in Iraq has always been Samarra. Today when the groups go there, actually they go under the instructions of Ayatollah Sistani. Ayatollah Sistani always takes out istikhara for the groups. When the group come there, they will ask Agha, is this an appropriate day for me to go to Samarra? And then Agha will advise them accordingly and say, yes, it is appropriate, you can go there. But in the last 2 years, of course, Samarra has become much more safer than it has been in the previous years. And we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may Allah give peace and prosperity all over Iraq, so that people can freely go and do the ziyarats of Aimma Masumin alayhimus salam. Salawat. Now you look at Imam alayhi salam, he moves to Samarra from Medina, and he lived, in fact, if you look at the 12th Imam, all the Imams prior to him, the 3 Imams, died at a very young age. If you look at the 9th Imam, he was hardly 25 years of age. You look at the 10th Imam, he was 41 years of age. And then when you look at this Imam, he was 28 years of age. So they died at a very young age. But the irony with this Imam was that out of the 28 years, 13 years he was imprisoned. In fact, when his father came there, and he was as young as he was, they became part of a prison. And of course, in those days, there were different types of prisons. One of the prison was house arrest. When they say that you are under house arrest, that means that you cannot go in and out of that house, period, for years. And then there were prisons where there was absolutely nobody, and it was completely dark. And that is how they were being put into different prisons. This Imam lived in all those kinds of prisons. And therefore, every attempt was made to kill him. But they wanted to do in a style that the people would not recognize that the leadership had any hand on it. Because of course there were people, they were afraid of these people who were rising at that time. And they were rising against the Abbasid regime. So they were very, very much afraid. So what they did at that time was, one time Imam was in his prison and they brought a beautiful horse there. It was supposed to be the most expensive horse. They brought that horse, and the leader, of course, decided that I want massive numbers of people to come to Samarra to witness my horse and how I am going to sit on that horse and go into the city. So they called everybody except the Imam. Everybody comes there. The problem was it was a new horse. So before the king would get on the horse, it was customary that somebody else should try that horse first to make sure that it will allow him on his back. So they asked one person. They asked 2 people. Each of them were thrown off that horse. And the horse would not let anybody. Even when the king came close to it, the horse started to act in a way as if it was violent, and it would not accept that king. So now they are sitting and wondering, what should we do? One of the soldiers there instructs the king. He says, why don't you ask that grandsons of the Holy Prophet that is in the prison, why don't you call him? This is an opportune time to kill him. And he said, how? He said, well, all we have to do is ask him to get on that horse. And the horse will keep on throwing him down. And eventually, he said, he will die if he's going to keep on falling from the horse like that. So he said, okay, let's do that. So they brought Imam alayhi salam. Now they don't realize that this is an Imam. If a human being doesn't understand, the animal does understand who are the Ahlul Bayt. There is absolutely no doubt. A human being can come up with any kind of discussion, but when it comes to an animal, whether it is Zuljana or whether it is this horse, or whether they were the ducks of Imam Ali alayhi salam, they all knew precisely who an Imam is. And so what did they do? They asked Imam to get on that horse. He gets on that horse. The horse is very calm. He puts his head down. Imam gets upon the horse. Not only to that extent, but he actually puts his feet down, and Imam gets up on the horse and he starts to ride. This, of course, bothered the king. And he says, how can that be? He says, they know. This horse knows who I am. You may not know, but this horse knows who I am. And so they decided that, you know what, we will give you this horse as a gift then, because you are the only person who can ride this horse. But where would Imam ride this horse? Because at the end of the day, he was then again put into the prison. And that is how they had so many tricks they had in their lives. There was a governor who had said to his wife that I am sick and tired of looking after this man. Because every time we send somebody to him, because they had sent two big wrestlers actually, and these people were big. They were told, go into the den of this Imam and try and kill him, but harass him in such a way that he himself kills himself inside the prison. But every time they sent somebody inside the prison, that person became a pious person and came out as a pious individual. So they couldn't do anything. So this governor was so tired of this situation that he decided that, you know what, I'm going to take him home. So he asks the king, since he was the governor, the king said, you can take him. So he takes him to his house, he puts him inside the room, he locks up the room and says, you stay in there. His wife asked him, he said, who is in this room suddenly that you have locked him? He said, this person is somebody from Samara. But she was insisting. She said, how? Why did you decide to bring him and lock him up in our house? So then after a while, he gives the introduction to her, that he comes from the family of the Holy Prophet. The moment he hears that, she tells him that, listen, you don't realize to kill a member of the house of a prophet is not easy kill. We will all die because of your actions. Don't do that. And they would not listen. The husband did not listen to that. And he had a den, and in that den he had lions. And he used to keep these lions. So he says to his wife, he said, you know what, tomorrow morning I'm going to grab him and throw him into the den of these lions. And then we will see. So he goes out, picks Imam, throws him into the den, and walks away from there. History says that evening when he comes back, he sees all of the lions sitting in a circle near Imam alayhi salam. Once again, he finds out that truly, even those animals knew these Imams. But then the question always comes into our mind, right? Didn't people see all this? Didn't people see the way an Imam was an Imam? Then how come they didn't follow him? Of course, there was a small followership. But why didn't most of the Imams see that? Most of the people recognize that. And that is the reason that Imam Hussein alayhi salam gives in Karbala. When he was talking to the people, he said, I know you know.
I know that I am a grandson of Muhammad. You know that. But in spite of that, you are standing against me. Why? He said, because your stomach is full of that which is haram. And when there are things that we do haram, we may be a Shia, we may be even in the front row of the Salat. But if our inside is corrupt, my brothers and sisters in Islam, then you will not see Ahlul Bayt the way they were to be seen. We have to keep our hearts clean. To keep our heart clean, to keep our minds clean. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says in Surah Al-Ahzab, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلُ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. He says, I will keep away that which is najasat away from you. Only that which will be tahir will be with you. So therefore it is important that for us to be able to be called as believers of the truthfuls, the believers of those who are divine leaders, we should also develop the qualities within us. And these 68 days that we came here, 68 days, of course, our community doesn't commemorate, but there are communities in America that commemorate from the 1st of Muharram till today, till the 8th. They are in the mosque and they are commemorating. When we are commemorating such events must make a difference in whom we are, what we are, and where are we going. That is so important for us to understand and to bring ourselves as close as possible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You look at this Imam and how sad it was. History says that for 2 years, he was in the prison, in the darkest prison, for 2 years, continuously. And the only food that he was given was 2 loaves of bread and a glass of water. That was it. For 2 years. We should thank Allah, what hasn't He given us? He has given us so many things. But even then we still complain that, Ya Allah, keep on adding, and He keeps on adding. We ask, He keeps on giving us. But you look at this Imam and the way he was living, and he had to live under the most severe conditions. But in spite of that, when they used to come to the prison, they used to look down and they used to see that Imam alayhi salam was in his sajda, always thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To that extent that a man comes with pomegranates, a tray of pomegranates, and he decides, because he had heard that Imam was not being given any food, hardly any food, so he one day comes with the pomegranates and he hands it over to Imam alayhi salam. His guard, his prison guard, was outside sitting watching him. And the prison guard had his eye on those pomegranates. It looked like he wanted to have some. So when Imam took the pomegranates, he took one pomegranate and gave it to the guard. And he said, here, looks like you would like to have some pomegranate. But then he didn't eat that pomegranate. He took that pomegranate and put it in his pocket. And Imam is watching him. After he did that, Imam alayhi salam says, why don't you eat the pomegranates? He said, you know, my house, I have so much hunger in my house. My children are hungry, my wife is hungry. And Imam alayhi salam takes all of those pomegranates and gives it to him, and he says, go and have a feast tonight. But this is Ahlul Bayt. This is how caring they were for humanity. It did not matter to them whether somebody was following them or not following them. If he was needy, then Imam alayhi salam always did what they had to do to make sure that they fulfill the needs of all kinds of people. And that is the training, that is the learning that we get from the life of Imam Hassan al-Askari, that even in his short time, but then the time comes when they decide to poison him. And they brought some fruits, and they brought the fruits and decided to poison Imam alayhi salam. Imam alayhi salam eats that fruit, and he starts to feel the zahar the poison in his body, and he started to feel it. So he had a person next to him. He called him Adil, and he says, Adil, can you bring me a glass of water? I'm feeling very thirsty. So Adil goes and gets him a glass of water. Imam is just about to drink that glass of water when his hand goes down and the glass falls on the ground. And immediately at that time he looks at the water and he says to Adil, Adil, can you see I have a 5-year-old son that is in the other room? See if you could bring him over to me. He goes and he grabs our 12th Imam, who was only 5 years of age. He had just come back from Medina. And he was in the house, and Imam calls him. Imam looks at him, and Imam takes the 12th Imam and hugs him very hard. We have to say, oh, our Imam, you had the opportunity even though your son had become an orphan. But we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to look after him for hundreds and hundreds of years. But here was Sakina, that even for a water she was being slapped on her face. And the way they treated Janabi Sakina, history says that Imam Hassan al-Askari's janazah was lifted by thousands of people and he was taken for burial. We have to say our Imam Sajjad on the day of Ashura was on the bed, and they brought Imam Hussein with Janab Zainab. When both of them came, Imam Hussein shook the shoulder of Imam, and Imam opened up his eyes and he started to talk to Imam. But one thing Imam says to Imam Zainul Abidin, that, oh my son, when you reach Medina, give my salams to my followers. And he said, oh Sajjad, tell them when they drink a glass of cold water to remember me and my children the way they were slaughtered. और अज़ीज़ान गिरामी, इस तरह से इमाम अली ज़ैनुल आबिदीन बातें कर रहे थे, इमाम की शहादत हो गई। अरे वक्त वो आया कि जनाब फिज़ा आती है, जनाब ज़ैनब को कहती है कि बीबी, अरे सब लोग शहीद हो गए, लगता है कि ये लोग लाशें इकट्ठे कर रहे हैं। और कहती है जनाब फिजा के घोड़ों की तैयारी हो रही है। कभी कोई आया और हबीब के लोगों ने हबीब को उठा लिया, अब्बास को उठा लिया, अली अकबर को उठा लिया, सिर्फ 2 लाशें पड़ी थी। एक तो अबू अब्दुल्ला अल-हुसैन की लाश थी, एक जनाब अली असगर, और उमर इब्ने साद ने हुक्म दिया कि यहाँ के घोड़े वहाँ जाए। अरे लाशों को पामाल कर दिया गया। अल्लाह लानतुल्लाहि अलल कौमिल ज़ालिमीन, सयअलमुल्लज़ीना ज़लमू अय्युमुनक़लिबि यनक़लिबून। इन्ना लिल्लाहि व इन्ना इलैहि राजिऊन। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अल्लाहुम्मा बिहक़्क़ि मुहम्मद व अंतल महमूद, बिहक़्क़ि अली व अंतल अला, بحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض، بحق الحسن وأنت المحسن، بحق الحسين وأنت كديم الإحسان. إلهي توبة قبل الموت وراحة عند الموت،
ومغفرة بعد الموت والنجاة من النار ودخولا في الجنة وعافية من كل بلاء الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة. ماتم حسین.